Okay, tonight we're going to begin a new topic. We've been in the 5 Inuyim. We discovered that the Inuyim, the only the Raisa are Chila and Shtia. The other ones are all the Rabbanon. The Netta we said by Melech, Achaya, Yoledes, and Eterim. Go ahead and wash. And tonight we're going to begin the share of Yom Kippur, which is very unique because the share of Yom Kippur is different than anyone else. The share of Yom Kippur, usually by Achila, the share is a kazayas. Over here by Yom Kippur, it's uniquely different. It's a keseves. Now, to understand the Gemara, we have to go back to the Mishnah and see the exact lashon that. So let's turn back to Ayin Gimel Amid Beis. Ayin Gimel Amid Beis. And the Mishnah, the third line down, it says, "Ha'oichel kikeseves hagasa." Anyone who eats a date, not just any date, but gasa, a zaftig date, kimoha, it meaning it the pulp, ukigarinasa, and its garin and its seed, that's the share of Yom Kippur. Now the shaila is on the word kigarinasa. What is that going on? Pashit, I would learn, it means you're eating a big date with the pit intact inside, right? But the Gemara has a whole shaila, and we're going to have a few opinions as to what the shaila was. What exactly are we discussing over here? So let's go back to Ayin Ches Amid Beis, the bottom line. So it says, "Oichel kikeseves hagasa kemo uchagarinasa." Boy, Rav Papa, the following question: Kikeseves she'amru b'garinasa or below garinasa? Is the date we're discussing with its pit or without its pit? Now, apparently, it's the question. The way we just read the Mishnah is, what's the question? Meaning, you're just doing away with the pit. It clearly says the word pit, correct? So, what does that mean? So, we're going to see maybe two sheetas for sure, maybe a third sheet. And then we'll spend, okay, exactly what the Gemara is questioning. Okay. What, you don't eat the pit. We just know the size of what you're eating on Yom Kippur. The volume of food of Yom Kippur, like a gazayas, not eating a gazayas, you're eating sides of gazayas. Over here, you're eating food the size of a keseves, of a date. Good. So now let's see how Rashi learns. Says Rashi, we're on Rashi Ayin Tes Amid Aleph. Is this the date with its pit or without its pit? Obviously, Rashi asked the obvious question. What do you mean? And that our Mishnah says, and its pit. What does that mean? Here's what Hachi Kamar. Kimoha, its volume, its pulp. Ukigarinasa yachad doesn't mean together like we learned. No, it's pashit. In pulp with pit. Aidilma Hachi Kamar. Kimoha o kigarinasa. Does it mean the word karinasa is like a vav and means a vav? It can mean or. So it means like either the pulp or the seed or the pit. What?
It's not the same amount.
Okay, so now it's not the same amount. So this is what's bothering Taisus. Let's see Taisus. Okay, first let's get the shaila according to Rashi. Says Rashi, Rav Papa's shaila is, according to a Pashut understanding, is that when it says the keseves and pit doesn't mean with its pit, or it means the keseves or the pit, meaning the volume of the pulp, or says now. Pirish Rashi says Taisus, Einam Yoshev doesn't exactly answer well. Did my komi boile? Ishaloi begarinasa kamar, va'anan kigarinasa tanan, the mesafgale ukigarinasa mamish kamar, oidilma oi kigarinasa kamo cholitz vasa maimer. It says in Yevamis, guys, cholitz do chalitza and you do maimer. It doesn't mean and you do maimer. You do chalitza, v'asa maimer. Oh, v'asa maimer. Give the man this is Gemara. Wow. Guys, say hello to. This is the first time since COVID. This is a year in what? In the men there. Big shot. Okay, now. Okay, so in other words, guys, Right, the Taisa is just explaining how could you possibly learn and or, because you see in Shas we learn such a lashon cholitz and or maimah. So here it means kimoha and or its pit. In other words, Rashi Taisa just made me yashiv the lashon how Rashi arrived at his shaila. How Rashi arrived at the shaila. Now, what's the problem with this? Is Mendy's problem? Says the Gemara. Davi pirish cholitz loyasamaim of him came. Kikasevas agasi the reisha hainu beloy garinasa. Mikomaka maim esafkalu. Tifshit al karchach, because it means ukigari nasa kitani. It must mean with its pit. That you go ahead and we qualify the amount that you have to eat using both. The kigari nasa, if it means michti like shaval hadadi, they're not equal. They're not equal. So what would you learn, guys, if they're not equal? So whatever the smaller amount is, that's the amount you be chayiv. You have a pit, you have a pulp. Which one's smaller? Whatever the smaller one is, if you'd eat that amount on Yom Kippur, you'd be chayiv kares.
That could be less than a kazayis.
What?
That could be less than a kazayis.
No, again, whatever I don't think so. I don't think so. We're gonna see that it's much. Hesh, we'll get. How much is the kesevis? You have any idea? Is it more than kazayis, less than a kazayis? It's more. Is it more than a beitza or less than a beya? More than a beitza, less than a beya. You don't know. How many zaysim in a beya? 2. So again, your question might be a little early. Okay, what you're doing is picturing in your mind a pit and saying. So again, I never picture these things in my mind, because they don't make any sense to me. But again, but it's the chalapachas, guys. So Tosfos kasha and Rashi is good kasha. Now, okay. So, bottom line is this: says Rashi. What's the shaila? When we're going ahead, and guys, this is a big shaila, because this is going to be chayiv kares. This is no small stuff. This is if one eats this amount on Yom Kippur, you chayiv kares. B'shoigeg, you have to bring a chatos. This is big stuff. So this is a vichtig shaila. So therefore, you have, according to Rashi, does it mean with its pit, or does it mean and or its pit?
What's the how many it's not? If you say that's the date, then that's the date. The date includes the date.
Because look, the lashon, the way the lashon of the Mishnah is. How do you read the lashon of the Mishnah, Mordechai? In other words, we deal with givens. The given is we have a shaila how to teach the word ukari nasa. Do you teach it? The most people do not eat the date with the pit. Most people remove the pit before. So therefore, when it says ukari nasa, does it mean with the pit, or does it mean and or the pit? That's the shaila. So Tosfos learns a different shaila. When nearly lefaris is Tosfos, the boile kaiseves agas toni he ukigari nasa, it and its pit. What does that mean? Hainu kaiseves kibriyasa, a normal pit, the way it's grown, right? No normal pit, a normal date, the date with its pit. Im hagarin ukigari nasa diktani. What does that mean? Hainu pirish v'oid garin acher beloy kaiseves. Does it mean a date alone, or does it mean a date and a pit plus another pit? Now a trey garinim v'kaiseves, which would mean 2 garinim and a kaiseves. Ideal mukaiseves agastic tani beloy garin mashmu karinas ahenu garin shemasikum. In other words, go back to the Mishnah, guys. Go back to the Mishnah. I'll read both. I'll read all pshatim in there. All pshatim. Yeah, 3 lines down. I give them on the base. Ha'oichel kikaiseves agasa kimoya ucharinasa. Someone eats a kaiseves, a large date, kamoya, with its pulp, ukarinasa, plus its pit, according to Rashi. Kamoa without its pit, or karinasa, or eats just the pit. Good. Tosfos, kaiseves with a pit, or meaning with a pit, ukigarinasa plus another pit. That's, in other words, you see Mordechai. That's you got to fit it in the words, right? That's the question at hand. Good, guys. We're looking at the words, right? All you guys are all good. That's the way. How do you view the word ukigarinasa? Do you view it as part of it or as a separate thing? If you view it as Rashi says, if you view it as a separate thing, then what? Then the date is without the pit. Tosfos says, even if you view it as a separate thing, the first part is kamoha, means with the pit, and karinasa plus another pit. That's the shayla at him. Now you know the answer to the question. You know it's going to be a zaftig one. Okay, Says the way. So for Geshmak, guys, good? We're good. Okay, that's the Shaila. Nachama. Boy, Papa. Kikar Sevish Amr. When it says Kikar Sevis, Gari Nasa, I believe Gari Nasa, we have two ways to learn. Boy, Ravashi. Now, Rashi has another Shaila. We know by Tumis Mace that the share of a bone is Ksora, a barley bean. The share of Ksora is a barley bean. Boy, Ravashi. Esen Kisora, is that Bekli Pasa? Does it mean with the shell of the Saira? I believe Klipasa. Or without the shell of the Saira? You know, it's a similar question. One's an internal pit, this is an external. So when we say that shear, guys, is the shear with the barley shell or without the barley shell? Bilacha, is it with a moist barley or biavesha or a dry barley, which would be smaller? Now, Rav Ashi, let me boil Hadra Papa. Rav Ashi had no shaila by Rav Papa. In other words, he clearly said, because Gasa Itmar, we learned the Gasa, Kol Kama the Gasa. As long as it's Gasa, meaning if you're going to take the pit out, it's no longer a Gasa. So when it says Gasa, obviously means with the pit still inside. So therefore, Rav Ashi, who had the shaila by a bone of soira, did not have a problem with dates. No problem whatsoever. Gasa means a date, a zaftig date with inside. Now, conversely, Rav Papa, who had a shaila by dates, loimi boile, he didn't have a problem with bones, because Hadar Rav Ashi, lacha, shiboilis mikri. You know what wet barley is called? It's not called soira, it's called shiboilis. And it says etzem kisaira. Shaloi b'kli pasa, if it's shelled, uhushla or uhushla mikri, and it's not called barley, and therefore there was no shaila that it must mean what, right? The shaila, therefore it must mean what? It must be dried with a klipa, and that's called saira. When it's dried with a klipa, that's called saira. Guys, good. So in other words, we had a shaila. Rav Papa has this problem with dates. Rav Ashi has this problem with bones. Neither one had either one's issue. Amar Rabba, Amar Rav Yehuda. Okay, now if he said Gasa, I think we passing with the with its I didn't look it up, but I think we passing with its yeah, I think we passing with its with the pit inside of it. With the pit inside of it. Okay. Guys, I'm gonna just stop recording for a second. Okay, we're gonna just hold off in the mission board for a second to see the next piece of Gemara, and that'll help us out a great deal. Okay, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Kaiseves Agasa Sha'amru Yiseir Mikabetza. Now, here's the catch, fellas. When it comes to eating, if I ask anyone here, what's the share of food? It is kazayas, no one. Right? No, okay. Everyone, normal people. That's the share of normal people. Right? No, the share team. No, it's that you can't, guys. You can't eat chaylev, right? What's the share of eating chaylev? But chayev, talking about chayev. Okay, kazayas. That's the share. That's the share. Comes to drinking, the shares are revius. We all have. We know one's a quarter of a leg, one's a zayas. Right? One's a zayas. A zayas is there's two zaysim in a bit. There's two zaysim in a beitza. Two zaysim in a beitza. Kesevis, it seems to be a very, very odd term. Like what is a kesevis? And then what is, first of all, we'll see later on why a kesevis, but what is in Heshis, what is the amount of a kesevis? How much is that? Vis-a-vis a zayis, vis-a-vis a beitza, right? What's the share? So the Gemara is going to give us a share. We're going to see machloikas, and then we'll see what psak is. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Kaiseves hagasa she'amru yiseiru mikabetza. It's bigger than a beitza. So it's much bigger than a zayis, much bigger. It's even bigger than an egg. The kimul rabbanon the bahachi meis v'daite. This will give meis das, but some mihachi loy meis v'daite. Fellas, by Yom Kippur is different than any other lot. The achila by Yom Kippur is very, very different than anything else. By chaylev, it says lo sheni chaylev. We know chametz is b'mashu, but it says l'achila. The issa is not to eat chaylev. The issa by chazer is ksayis. The issa by noiser is ksayis. The issa by any meichel isuris, the issa is what? Is the share of the issa. Why? Why is that? Because the Isser is Achila. By Yom Kippur, it's not also to eat, fellas. It's also to have Hana. It's also to be comfortable. You have to be mis'aneh. The Lashon is le'su'uneh. It doesn't say you don't eat on Yom Kippur. It says be mis'aneh on Yom Kippur. If you eat a zayis, you're still mis'aneh. Because the Isser is not Achila. The Isser is to be comfortable, not to be mis'ana anymore. The share of mis'ana is Yishuv Hadas. Is how much do you have to get for Yishuv Hadas? So we go after Roiv Adam, how much they have to eat for Yishuv Hadas. And the Chachamim, Kimul Rabbanon, you know what the share is? Is a Kaiseves. That's the share. The share is a Kaiseves. And that's the uniqueness of why Yom Kippur is different than any other Achila. Because it's not a din in Achila. It's a din in Yishuv Hadas. It's a din in removing yourself from the state of Inui. That requires a Kaiseves, not a Kazayas. That's the difference. Yeah, versteht sich, yeah. We're going to see later on. It's later on in the parak. You see it later in the parak. It's a whole different. It's a whole different way of looking at something, right? What? Yeah, I
So if I eat something I didn't like, it would be
okay, that's a milsalei shchichi, like Azur Rabbanon. So anyway, so that gives. So look at Rashi, guys. Kimul Rabbanon. Look at Rashi. V'afagav the whole share achila. Issa because he, even though all share b'achilas is the share of Issa. Isn't Issa because Zayis? Hani mili heicha. That's where the chsiv achila. That's the afka where it says achila. Aval hacha over here. Asher loy seuna ksiv. Loy seuna. A person who does that misana. V'chol kamid loy meis v'daite. As long as he doesn't get to the share of Yishuv Hadas, inuhu. Guys, that's inuh. That's inuh. If you have on Gemara, you should underline that. So you say Yom Kippur. It's a whole Yom Kippur. It's not a din achila. It's a whole different ball game. It's a whole different ball game. Okay, says the Gemara. Mesidei, Maisa. So again, here's the guys. So how much is it? How much is a kaseves? Guys, more than a beitza, right? More than a beitza. Now we're going to question that by sukkah. Maisa ve'vil Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai litoimes at tafshel. They brought Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai cooked food. Rabbi Gamliel shtei kaisvos, and Rabbi Gamliel they brought 2 kaisvos. That's a double the share of Yom Kippur. V'dali shalmayim and a pitcher of water. The Amru and they said, "Helam l'sukkah, go into the sukkah to eat it." V'tani Allah. We learned on that not because the halacha is that they had to eat in the sukkah. They wanted to be what? Machmer on themselves. They want so not okay. So in other words, so a person can eat what outside of the sukkah? What? 2 kaisvais. Without the chumrah, it says clearly they didn't have to go in. The whole reason they were in al chumrah, but they could have eaten 2 kaisvais outside. That's what it says. That's what it says. Now a second in, and when they gave to Rav Tzaddik, they gave him a mamish mezainas or bread less than a beitza, not luba mape. First he took it with a mape, meaning he didn't wash. The sukkah and he didn't bring it in the sukkah. And he didn't go ahead and bench afterwards. So he 3 kulas. Since it was less than a beitza. He didn't wash before. He took a mappa. 2, he ate it outside the sukkah, and 3, he didn't bench afterwards. Now, hakebetza, if it was the share of a beitza by sukkah, correct? So let's get guys. Look at me. Let's play a little. Remember a clue? Let's play a little clue. Here we got 2 pieces of information. We got Rabbi Gamliel eating 2 kaisvais outside the sukkah, inside the sukkah al schumra. But he could have stayed outside, right? Yeah? Good. We have Rabbi Tzaddik staying outside the sukkah. Why? Because it was less than a beitza. If it was more than a beitza, he would go into the sukkah. Now, what did you tell me about the kaisvais? It's what? It's more than a beitza. How's that possible? You have two conflicting pieces of information in sukkah. One, you tell me beitza, you got to go in the sukkah. Now you tell me a kois is more than a beitza, and you can stay at the sukkah. The whole reason you went inside is las chumrah. Says the Gemara, haka beitza by sukkah. V'isal kedaita kois v'is hagasa sh'amru. Yiseir mika beitza, pashas the kois v'is that a big one is more than a beitza, but a stam one is not. Hashta she kois v'is beloy garin loy havi kebeitza kois v'is hagasa v'garisam yavi yiseir mika beitza. Is it possible, guys? One. Now the assumption is Rabbi Gamliel is eating without the pit, right? So you're going to tell me one with the pit is larger than two without the pit? In other words, I'll answer the kasha. Listen before you react. Listen. You told me a gzaftig date with the pit is more than a beitza, right? Good. Now you're telling me two koisvos is apparently less than a beitza. Good. How could that be? You just told me if they stayed outside the sukkah, they could have stayed outside the sukkah, mashma. So what are you going to tell me? The two he ate was without the pit is less than a beitza. Could you say such a thing? So says the Gemara, you could. Says the Gemara, right? Amar of Yirmiyah in shtei kaisvais bloy gari nasa loy havi kabeitza kais right? Loy havi kabeitza kaisvais agasav gari nasa havi ser mikabeitza. So Amar Papa Hainu Darmiyin. See, that's what people say. Trey kavi de tamri, two kav, a measurement, a kav of dates with the pit is chad kav de kaishasa v'sariach is equal to one kav of pits v'sariach and a little more. So you see, once it's pitted, it's much less. So einachinami, we answered the kasha, guys. Really, what a date with a pit is more than a beitza. And Rabbi Gamliel didn't have to go into the sukkah. Why? Because it's less than a beitza. It's two. Two without a pit is not a beitza. Masha enkein, one with a pit is. That's what we answered up. Now, there's an obvious answer over here, which Baruch Hashem, I was learning. What did Rabbi Gamliel eat? He ate dates, right? No. Since when do you have to eat fruit in the sukkah, even if it's more than a beitza?
Shivas Aminim, no?
You don't have to. Says the Gemara, and for the Gemara, Rava Amar Hasanaynu Taima Mishum Nahavi Le Peri. The reason why Midaraisi wasn't believed to go in was Paris. Peri Le by sukkah. Peri doesn't need a sukkah. Okay, so now we're going to question. Okay, so now we attacked Rava in the name of Yehuda. We attacked the din. He survived. So right now we're holding Kasevis Agasa is more than a beitza. Kasevis Agasa is more than a beitza. And now we're going to question. You brought in that Peri is part of Masukah. I'm going to question that. So now we just digress from Hilchas Yom Kippur to Hilchas Sukkah. A little prelim what's going to come up. The next Masech is Sukkah. Right? Also very nice to be learning it. You're going to be learning it right pretty much before Sukkot, guys. You're going to learn it the whole summer until the end of August, and Sukkot is going to be in September. It's not bad. Then you go to Beitza, which is Hilchos Yontif, so you're not. It's very nice. Kodesh Baruch Hu gave us. He gave us Arei Pesach and Arei Pesach, and he's going to Sukkot, Arei Sukkot. It's not a bad time to be a Daf Yomi Yid. Right, Mindy? Not a machlokes. Okay, great. Says the Gemara. Meisaveh. You said a peri was pashim Sukkot. Meisaveh. Amar Rabbi. Kishayinu learning Torah Eitzel Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua. When we're learning Torah by Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua, Hevinu lefanenu, they brought in front of us te'enim ve'anavim, figs, ve'anavim and grapes, ve'achlonum achilas aroy chutz l'sukkah, and we ate an achilas aroy chutz l'sukkah. These are the Shevas Minim Yehuda. Ve'achlam achilas aroy chutz l'sukkah. Achilas aroy in, achilas kevaloi. So l'chayra, you have a kasha. You see Paris on mechuyev in the sukkah. And for the Gemara, no, that's not the way you read it. Amar, achlonum ki achilas aroy chutz l'sukkah. We ate them like an achilas aroy outside the sukkah. That's what it means. We ate them like an achilas aroy outside the sukkah. Iba is saying in another teretz, achalnu achilas keva. We ate the Paris achilas keva. We ate Paris achilas keva outside the sukkah. Right? And we ate pas achilas aroy, meaning very little. With it, chutz l'sukkah. So in other words, one is going on Paris and one is going on bread. and we eat less of amount outside the sukkah. Lema Messiah, I'll bring a raya. Let's bring a raya. Okay, now there's a machloikis, fellas, in Masech the Sukkah and Daf Chav Zayin. How many sudas do you have to eat in the sukkah? Says Rebbe Eliezer, you have to eat 14. Teshuvah came to Duru, just like you eat 2 meals a day. We eat 3 and sometimes more, but they used to eat 2 meals a day, and so you have to be in the sukkah. You 2, and the Chum say the first night alone. That's it. The rest of the time you don't have to. Okay, Rabbi Eliezer has charata. But again, based off that is the following Gemara. Lefikach im hishlim, if he's mashlim the amount of on Shmini Atzeres, his short is 14. If he's mashlim the mini targima using mini targima, yotza, he would be yotza. Visakadaitach peri boy sukkah, and if you're going to tell me Paris needs a sukkah, listen, Paris. So why don't you say he ate Paris? The Gemara assumes for some reason that there's a bigger chiddush to say Paris than Targima. There's a machloikus what Targima is. Mashi says mine masika, different things. Tosfos says cooked fruit or something, kaflut, different things. Anyway, my mini Targima, Paris says, well, you have no raya, because Kenzai mini Targima is Paris, and therefore you mean mashlim, there's a din in the sukkah. Really, you should have eaten Paris in the sukkah, but it's a place where Paris are not found. Let's do a taisus over here. Mini targima, perish perik hayashon in sukkah. Gabe im hishlim yudalit sudais, to be mashlim. There's 14 sudas according to Rabbi Eliezer. Shechai vadam lechol besukah b'mini targima yaitza. If you make your 14 with the mini targima, you're yaitza. Perish Rashi kegoyim what's mini targima? Peiros the kisnin. Kisnin is I don't know. Kaflut. Different vegetable moves shalom that are cooked. The mashma the mini tagima love Paris ninu. Mashma from here it's not Paris because it's 2 different things. Vein lilmol mikan, you can't learn from here shayoyel mine tagima lahashlam shalei suda shel Shabbos. You can't eat it for the 3rd suda. The amahacha im hishlam b'mini tagima yatsa. There's a difference between. In other words, you might think the following: just like you can be mashlam yechi of suda by sukkah, you can be mashlam yechi of Shabbos or shel suda as well with mini tagima. The shani hasam. You have a pasuk. Midachsiv tilses zmanim hayoim. Gabi min shohayu b'makam pas. Mon that was in the pace of pas. Lafilu you have yamidan the nafik become usudais. The mini tagima kamay gabi sukkah mekal makam the peri like nafik. You won't be yaitzu with peri only mini tagima le mahani nami b'sukkah. Okay, bottom line is the mini tagima. What exactly it is machlokes? Okay, where are we holding right now? We have a shita of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi quarter of Rabbi Yehuda, that the shear of a Sevis is more than a beitza. It's more than a beitza, and we're holding that Paris apart from sukkah. That's all. That's what we're holding right now. Says the Gemara. Rav Zvid Amar Kaisevis Agasa Shomru is chaser b'kabeitza. It's less. He argues it's less than a beitza, not more than a beitza. It's less than a beitza. Ditnan Beishama Yoimim Saor b'kazayis. The shear of leaven, hard. The sourdough is a kazayis, and this is, guys, the share bal yirah bal yimatzah, right? Be over in your rishus. Chometz is kaiseves. So Beishamai says saor is kazayis, chometz be kaiseves. Now, is chometz more makel, guys, than saor? For sure. Chometz can't leaven something else. Saor can leaven something else. So mashmois over here is that a kaiseves is larger than a what? Than a kazayis. Good, larger than a kazayis. Va'avinamba, my time of the Beishamai. What's the reason that he got? Why didn't he say a different share? Guys, why didn't he say both bikazayis? Why didn't he say both bikazayis? That's the kasha. My time at the Beishamai that he gives a different share by chametz. Why? Because nichtav rechman chametz that you're chayav for kazayis. V'leiboy sa'ar, and you wouldn't have to tell me sa'ar. V'ano amina umach chametz sheina chamutza kasha. Chametz, which is leavening property, is not so powerful. Also bikazayis. Now, when the Torah goes ahead and makes a distinction between Sa'ar and Chometz, it must be to tell me a Chiddush in Sa'ar. Sa'ar because guys, look. Just how did Beis Shammai know there's two different shiurim? Because if there was one shiur, you could have learned the Kal V'chomer. You could have said, Madach, the share of Chometz, is the Kazayis. Sa'ar, which is stronger, einay din, it should be a kazayis. Ella, when it separates Sa'ar from chametz, and you learn, the Torah separated Sa'ar when you could have learned it out of a kal v'chomer because it's more powerful in its fermentation ability. So what would you have said? There must be a reason that you mentioned it. What's the reason? To tell me they're two different shiurim. So what's the share of a Sa'ar is a kazayis. The share of chametz is a kaisevis. Good. Now we're adding up to now that we have that, we're building up to the kasha. Now, v'isakadaita kaisevis agasa she'amru is you say mekabetza like Rabbi Yehuda, like Rabbi wants to say Rabbi Yehuda michti beishamai ashiura denofish mikazayis kamahadre. Guys, all beishamai needed was what? A different share than a kazayis. Again, one more time. Guys, look at me one more time. Again, I'm not convinced that you understand what I'm talking about. One more time. If the Torah would have just said chametz, would you have known that Sa'ar is asa? Of course. Mad the chametz, which is weak in its power to ferment, make chametz, is the share is asa, certainly the share wad of Sa'ar. And we have a rule by Kal v'chomer, that you learn out of Kal v'chomer takes on the same property that you learned it from. So why would the share be by Sa'ar? Because Ella, so why did Torah write Sa'ar then? If I could have learned it from a Kal v'chomer of chametz, why did it write Sa'ar? And you know what the answer is? To tell me it's a different share. But it doesn't tell you what that share is. But we know that share is less than chametz, right? Yes? We know it's less than chametz. So now, Sa'ar is the kazayis. What's the next share? Why did you jump to kaiseves? If it's what? If it's more than a beitza, jump to the lesser share. Say beitza. Ella must be that what? It's less than a beitza. Got it? Good. V'isal kedaita kaiseves agasa shamru yiseir mikabeitza michti beishamai ashiur de nafesh mikazayis kamahadre. Beishamai is only looking for a share that's larger than a kazayis, that's larger than the share of chametz. Listen kebeitza, learn a beitza. V'inami, you're going to tell me what? Ki hadadi ninu, you're going to tell me that they're equal. Nisle kebeitza. Learn kibbetza. After all, beitza, guys, is fat. No, you find it by Tumas Eichlin. You find the realm. You find beitza. We're going to see in a second. You find it like Rabbi Shita, Rabbi Yehuda by benching is only if you eat a share of a beitza. Kasevis you don't find anywhere. So in other words, it's a Gamalga Kasha. So it must be, guys, it's less than a beitza. Kasevis pechusa mikabeitza. Kasevis is less than a beitza. Guys, in other words, you know why you learn kasevis? Because that's the next one up. Tefasta meruba like tefasta. So chametz is what? A kazayis. What's the next? Kaiseves. Of course, it's less than a beitza. You're going to tell me the least amount. All you need is a share bigger than a zayis. I have it. You know what the share bigger than a zayis is? A kaiseves. Of course, it's more than a beitza, but it's more than a kazayis, but it's less than a beitza. But according to you, Rabbi Yehuda, you shouldn't be telling me kaisevis. You should tell me beitza, because that's the one more than what? Than kazayis. Memai says, what's your raya? Hastama is kebeitza. Pirish. A kaisevis gatsa, a zaftig kaisevis, that's more than what? A beitza. But a regular kaisevis is a beitza. Guys, what does it say? So it says chametz is a zayis and sa'ar is a kaisevis. It doesn't say kaisevis gasa. It says stam kaisevis, and stam kaisevis could be what? But kaisevis gasa, that's more. That's what he said. It's more. So you learn one. You learn one or the other. Where's it kick in? It doesn't kick out. It's still part of the kaisevis gasa.
Oh, okay.
Ella mehacha ad kama mazmin. How much do you have to eat to be part of a mezumin? Ad kazayis. The Reb Meir. If you don't ad kibetza, you have to eat the share of beitza. My kamifli. Reb Meir saba v'chalta zu achila v'savata zu shtia v'achila b'kazayis. And Stam says v'chalta is b'kazayis. Reb Yehuda saba v'chalta v'savata achila sheish b'savia. You need achila shvia. Guys, to eat midaraisa, the bench midaraisa, you have to eat a beitza. You know that. Now you do. We did it in the Sefta Brachas. Achila savata achila sheish b'savia. Veizez zeh kebeitza. V'isakadai the kasevis agasa shom. You say me kebeitza. Hashta kebeitza savui masba daita le misva. Guys, What's a higher level? Yeshiva das or stia, or being satiated. Obviously, being satiated is much higher than just getting your mind a little straight. So you're telling me now that the share of a beitza is the share of to be svia, zat. You're going to tell me that that a keseves gasa is more than a beitza? We're going to let you eat more? All we want to do is remove, again, we want you to stop thinking about the inoy, right? That's less. You're telling me beitza is here, guys. You tell me Yeshiva das is here, and you tell me the share keseves is here? Makes no sense, right? If a beitza is enough to do this, and all you need is this, you tell me keseves is this? Makes no sense. Says Gemara, what do you hear from there? Allah shmamina, keseves hagasa shomru is pachas mikebeitza. Okay? Kebeitza masba'a, kebeitza seveya, keseves meisvedaita, keseves meisvedaita. And that's the answer to the question. Bring in Tafrei Shir Beis, Hoichel b'yom kippurim keseves hagasa chayiv, for who pachas mikebeitza ma'at. It's a little bit less than a beitza. The shir zeh shava l'chaladam. The shir zeh shava l'chaladam. The shir is equal to every person. Doesn't matter who. Bein lenanis, whether it's a shrimp. Bein la'oig melech habashan. No matter how big you are, no matter how big your stomach is, that's the shir.
Yeah, Rabbi.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.